Today's subject is a woman whose elegance redefined Hollywood glamour, whose icy stare burned through celluloid, and whose presence could silence a room long before she said a word. Michelle Pfeiffer. She was the platinum siren of the silver screen, the Catwoman who slinked across rooftops, the lounge singer who broke hearts with a single note, and the enigma who became an icon without ever chasing the spotlight. For decades, she played every kind of woman, wounded, wicked, or wondrous, but off-screen, Michelle Pfeiffer wrote a very different script. Far from red carpets and box office headlines, she built a quiet world anchored not in fame, but in family. Long before she accepted her first Golden Globe, she made an even braver move adopting a baby girl as a single woman in Hollywood at the height of her career. Weeks later, she met the man who would become her husband, not in a casting room but on a blind date. And from that unlikely beginning came a life she would protect more fiercely than any role her children didn't grow up in tabloid headlines or designer photo shoots. They grew up in private, guided by a mother who walked away from billion-dollar franchises to be there for bedtime, for birthdays, for the long, quiet years when the world wondered where Michelle Pfeiffer had gone. She hadn't disappeared, she had chosen to stay home. And though the world still remembers the gowns, the cheekbones, the unforgettable roles, those closest to her remember something else. A woman who gave her most intimate performances not to an audience, but to the two children who simply knew her as mom. This is the story of Michelle Pfeiffer and what happened to the two children of Hollywood's most mysterious leading lady. Claudia Rose Kelly entered the world not through celebrity lineage, but through a bold, private act of love that caught Hollywood off guard. In March 1993, at the height of her career, and just months before marrying screenwriter David E. Kelley, Michelle Pfeiffer adopted Claudia as a newborn, alone. No press tour, no cover story, just a signature, a baby, and a choice that defied the image of what motherhood looked like in elite Hollywood circles. When Michelle married David in November 1993, he didn't just become her husband, he became Claudia's legal father. Overnight, Claudia went from being an anonymous infant to the adopted daughter of two of the most influential figures in the entertainment industry. An A-list actress with 3 Oscar nominations, and a television mogul who would soon dominate primetime drama with The Practice and Ally McBeal. By the late 1990s, while David's legal dramas redefined American television and Michelle's performances continued to command awards attention, Claudia's life was moving in the opposite direction inward. And away from the spotlight, the Kellys never paraded their children in front of cameras. Instead, David, known for his quiet brilliance and low tolerance for Hollywood flash, built a protective wall around family life. He took the same discipline he applied to courtroom monologues and channeled it into parenting structured, intentional, deeply private. His shows may have aired to millions, but inside the Kelley home, dinner came before deadlines, and Claudia grew up in a house that respected intellect more than image. During Claudia's childhood in the 2000s, as David produced Boston Legal and Big Love, he became the family's moral anchor, the one who picked up school runs when Michelle was filming, who kept the family grounded when scripts and studios tried to pull them in different directions. Claudia, enrolled in elite private schools in Los Angeles, inherited her parents' brains, but none of their craving for performance. By 2008, at around age 15, she was already known by classmates for her deep curiosity and quiet resolve. And while Michelle stepped back from Hollywood during those years, it was David's influence that gave Claudia a deeper framework: ethics, independence, and the firm belief that notoriety is not identity. As she entered college around 2011, Claudia remained invisible to public life. No Instagram, no red carpets, no celebrity kid cameos, and yet the industry always knew her name, not because she put herself forward, but because she didn't. In 2016, as David launched Goliath and Big Little Lies, he became a household name once again, but still never spoke about his daughter publicly. That silence spoke volumes. Claudia was never David Kelley's daughter with Michelle Pfeiffer. She was a person he raised deliberately, outside the pull of celebrity machinery. While other Hollywood offspring rushed to carve out influence from legacy, Claudia chose to study anthropology and social justice, reportedly attending a liberal arts college with no interest in trading her last name for access. Now in her early 30s as of 2025, Claudia lives completely off-grid, no public career, no brand partnerships, no headlines. And perhaps that's exactly what David Kelley always intended to give her a foundation so solid she never had to chase validation. While Michelle gave her elegance and empathy, David gave her structure, anonymity, and the confidence to live without applause. In a town obsessed with being seen, Claudia's greatest rebellion was staying unseen. And if her father's writing taught millions that character reveals itself under pressure, then Claudia, the daughter he never needed to broadcast, may be his most quietly powerful legacy of all. John Henry Kelley was born into a world of quiet power. On the surface, he was the biological child of Michelle Pfeiffer and David E. Kelley. Born in August 1994, less than a year after their wedding and just 16 months after his sister Claudia was adopted. But in truth, he wasn't born into fame. He was born into a family determined to protect him from it. While his mother was still a global icon and his father was fast becoming the most prolific TV writer of his generation, John Henry's first years were defined not by red carpets or cover shoots, but by guarded domesticity. Michelle scaled back major film roles throughout the late 1990s, choosing time at home over back-to-back blockbusters. Meanwhile, David, already riding high with picket fences, was beginning his ascent into prestige television, carefully carving out hit after hit from his writing studio in Brentwood, always close enough to walk back in time for dinner. This was the environment John Henry grew up in. Not Hollywood, but the margins of it secure, intelligent, and carefully controlled. By the time he entered elementary school in the early 2000s, his father was producing The Practice, and Michelle was unofficially semi-retired. David's writing had shifted national conversations about justice, ethics, and power. And at home, that sensibility bled into parenting. He wasn't loud, but he was absolute. Education mattered. Humility mattered more. John Henry, though born into privilege, was never groomed to be a celebrity. He was raised to be a citizen, someone who could think for himself. And yet, even within that intellectual calm, the pressure of legacy lingered. At school, he was the quiet boy whose father wrote courtroom monologues and whose mother used to be Catwoman teachers, new students whispered. But John never fed it. By all accounts, he was reserved, observant, slightly aloof, more likely to disappear into a book than a conversation. In high school around 2010, he reportedly excelled in science and philosophy, favoring logic and systems over the performative flair of his parents' industries. Unlike many sons of Hollywood couples, John didn't chase acting, didn't DJ, didn't model. He was never photographed at Coachella, never linked to influencer circles. The name John Henry Kelley appeared nowhere in the tabloid ecosystem. Even his college years, believed to have begun around 2012, left no digital trace. While Claudia was living quietly in California, John Henry may have left the state altogether, attending a university that didn't care about his lineage. Some sources speculated he pursued studies in neuroscience or law. Others believed he might have followed his father's footsteps into writing. But the truth is, no one outside his inner circle knows. That silence isn't just a result of media disinterest, it's a calculated wall, one almost certainly shaped by David E. Kelley. While Michelle Pfeiffer brought warmth, depth, and emotional literacy to her children, it was David who structured their world like one of his courtroom scripts. Tight, deliberate, and airtight. He understood better than anyone the corrosive effect of visibility without preparation. His own journey from Harvard Law School to Hollywood writer had taught him that a name can open doors, but only discipline builds the life behind them. With John Henry, he didn't build a spotlight, he built a perimeter, but that perimeter may have had its cost. While Claudia at least had the arc of adoption and early press intrigue to explain her guardedness, John Henry had only expectation, a biological child of two famous parents, given every opportunity, but seemingly uninterested in any of it. That's a heavy legacy to inherit. Not just fame, but the choice to ignore it. In 2019, when Michelle returned to prominence in Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, reporters again searched for her children. Claudia remained invisible. John Henry, now 25, was nowhere to be found. No red carpet appearances, no interviews, not even a LinkedIn. Theories ranged from he is a writer under a pen name to his a software engineer who avoids social media. None were confirmed. As of 2025, John Henry Kelly is 31 years old. Not an actor, not a celebrity, not a voice in the public square. And yet, his absence remains a presence. In a generation where most celebrity children stumble through fame or capitalize on legacy, he is a case study in complete rejection of it. And while Michelle remains the ethereal, elusive icon, it is David's influence that defines John Henry most clearly. He is his father's son, not in the fame, but in the discipline, in the silence, in the commitment to building a life that has nothing to prove. No scandal, no fame chasing, no inheritance headlines, just a man, raised with intention, walking a path no camera has followed, and in a city obsessed with exposure, that in itself might be the most radical legacy of all. One daughter, one son. Neither chased cameras, neither inherited the spotlight by force. Claudia Rose never tried to become her mother's reflection. She chose privacy over performance, distance over display. And John Henry, born into brilliance, didn't rebel, didn't boast, didn't fold. Instead, he followed the quiet structure his father built, measured, invisible, intentional. Their childhood wasn't lived in front of audiences. It was lived behind closed doors, between bedtime stories and scripts unwritten. Michelle Pfeiffer gave them grace. David E. Kelly gave them gravity. And together they gave their children a legacy not of fame, but of freedom. The rare kind that allows a new generation to walk away from the noise and build a life on their own terms. If you found this story moving and want more deep dives into the untold lives of Hollywood's most private families, subscribe to Hidden Heirs. Your support helps us bring the quiet truths into the light. Thanks for listening.